Welcome to Shaping Healthcare, a podcast by Citius Tech. I'm your host, Laurel Rockall. Joining us today is Dr. Neha Kanwar, Senior Assistant Vice President at Citius Tech. With over 18 years of experience in healthcare and life sciences, Neha has a profound understanding of the industry, having held leadership roles that bridge both providers and life sciences. At Citius Tech, she drives strategic initiatives to ensure clients navigate their digital journey towards the future of healthcare. Neha's expertise extends to go-to-market strategies, where she has demonstrated significant success in sales growth and market penetration. Join us as we explore the current state of denial management, the transformative potential of GenAI, and the ethical considerations that accompany these advancements in healthcare. Dr. Neha, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
It's great having you back. And to kick things off, can you please tell us about your journey in the healthcare and life sciences sector?
All right. So I have been with Citius Tech since the past 2+ years now, and I have been taking care of the healthcare provider consulting space. There is a lot of work that we do around domain-heavy consulting projects, whether it is assessments, recommendations, being a partner, client partners, or advising clients in terms of where their journey needs to be, or taking them from where they are to where they want to be, kind of building that roadmap, envisioning that journey with them, ideating with them, brainstorming with them, and then taking them to, the solutions that they are envisioning for the future. So kind of shaping healthcare possibilities with them, if I may.
With building those roadmaps for companies, as well as having the 18 years of experience, I'm sure that you really see all the challenges and opportunities that are facing healthcare providers today. So what are some of those most pressing challenges that you've seen?
If I have to talk specifically from the provider perspective, there is a lot going on in the entire healthcare ecosystem, is what I can say. And when I say healthcare, RCM or revenue cycle management is the key integration touch point across the ecosystem, whether it is between healthcare providers, payers, between pharmacy benefit management companies, or even payers again, or clearing houses. So all these entities together are tied up with kind of a ecosystem which revolves around the entire revenue cycle management. And, there is a lot of communication that goes across these channels because, there is money involved. The payments, the billing, the invoices, all happens through this entire chain, right from when the patient enters the value chain, that is, enters a provider, gets treated, all the clinical documentation that goes around, till the time the claims are kind of generated, submitted, and then finally sent across to the payer side of the ecosystem, and then gotten back to the provider, is the entire journey which is around your revenue cycle management. And that is why we are here today. And, there are some key challenges that most providers are facing in this space, which we will be going ahead and talking about.
That's a lot of steps. There's a lot of steps in that journey there, and especially, could allow for those gaps to happen in that traditional denial management process. So, maybe if you want to talk more specifically on what those gaps are, but also how they contribute to inefficiencies and revenue loss for healthcare organizations.
So if I have to talk about denials management specifically, and this space is a growing challenge which most providers are facing today. In fact, it is at the borderline of a challenge to a crisis kind of a situation, wherein there is around 10 to 15% of growth in the annual denials that are happening for providers. And it's a growing concern which most providers are wanting to resolve, wanting to understand, wanting to get into some kind of solutions, but they are somewhere lost in the entire, ecosystem. Now, the thing with denials management is, as I mentioned, the revenue cycle management is the backbone of it all. And if you have to divide the revenue cycle management, it's divided between the front, the middle, and the back office. Now, what is happening is that because of the entire annual number of claim denials that are happening, if you see the statistics, around 90% of these claims are which shouldn't have been denied, or, which have basic errors, or, they could have just been resolved on its own. But 90% of these claims are going into denials, and around 65% are not even getting resubmitted. So that's the kind of gap that we see. And why this is happening is because one is, of course, the volumes definitely are increasing of these claims. So there's a lot of backlog that is being created with providers. But the key issue is that the payer ecosystem has evolved. So there is a lot of tech investments that the payer system has been doing. But at the same time, the providers have lagged behind. So what happens is when the claims go in from the providers to the payers are automation with automation, with AI, they are getting those errors which the provider systems are not able to detect when passing on these claims. And that is the reason there is a lot of denial that comes back to the providers, which they are not able to handle because they are not technologically savvy. Secondly, they have a lot of staff shortages, which is a known problem across the US healthcare system. And thirdly, the kind of complexity of these denials, because of the systems that are detecting the denials, there's a lot of clinical and complex denials that are coming the provider way. And the staff is not adequately trained. There's shortage. With the shortage, the training of the staff is also a big problem. So across the value chain, there is an issue, whether it is front, middle, or the back office. From the front office perspective, it has been observed that 40 to 50% of the errors that are happening in the denials are happening in the front office itself. And that is the reason there is a major focus or a major reason for providers to invest in the front office. And we can, of course, get into the details of that. But 20 to 30% is where the middle office and the back office comes into the picture. So the entire, there's an opportunity which is across the value chain. However, there's a lot of focus on the front end, is what I would say.
Yeah, I want to go back to that statistic that you said a moment ago. You're saying 90% of these claims are being denied, with 65% not being sent back again
That's right.
checked. Those are very large numbers. And then on top of backlogs and staff being overwhelmed or not trained adequately, those are massive gaps that need that there's an opportunity for. Sorry, I'm so struck by those numbers. That's incredible. But in your experience, to add on to that, how have these changes in healthcare regulations, the payer policies, reimbursement models, how have they also impacted denial management practices?
If I have to say, Lauren, these have only added to the entire stress that is happening in the value chain. So there is a lot. So as we all understand, healthcare is very regulated, and there are a lot of changes that keep happening in this entire regulatory sector. There is a lot of changes, not only in terms of payer guidelines or the medical guidelines that come up, as and when that providers have to comply with, but there is a change in the entire, say, value system with reimbursement models getting changed themselves. So there is a lot of focus on the value-based care, reimbursement model, wherein now providers will not only be paid for the service, but they have to showcase a value that is aligned to that service or the clinical outcomes per se that is coming out of that service. And that is where the actual challenge is, because now providers will be stressed to actually show what is the kind of outcome that they have achieved with the treatment that has happened or the surgery that has happened with the patient, and the reimbursements are all related to that. So while sending out the prior auth requests or while sending out the claims, they will actually have to adequately support it with the kind of clinical documentation as well as the coding that needs to go across with this. Not only that, there are different methodologies that have come in terms of bundling these services. So in terms of charging or charge capture, there is a lot of changes in the charge masters per se that providers will need to do because of this entire bundling of services that has come up, or the bundling of the services that are provided by the providers. So there are regulatory changes that keep happening, and because of which the providers will have to keep updating their systems, will have to train their staff accordingly to map the right codes going into the claims, to map the right charges going into the claims. And they are not only going to be monitored on their clinical outcomes, but also the financial outcomes because of all these new payment models that are coming through. So there's a lot of risk that is involved currently when the claims are going through. There's a lot of validation that is required, and with humans, managing all of this, there is a lot of scope of errors as well as the duplicate claims going out, or a lot of other reasons which we observe across the entire denials management process. So that's a bigger challenge that providers are facing now because of all these regulatory monitoring.
With all of those steps in the process and the potential for human error, as well as backlogs, as well as all these key gaps in the traditional claims denial management in that landscape there. There are a lot of opportunities here. So how can Gen AI fundamentally transform the denial management process?
Now, the future of AI or the future of healthcare is all about AI, is what I can say. And this is now universally getting accepted across reports, across analyst research that we see. And we are also experiencing that when we talk to customers. Everybody is wanting to get the automation or the AI way. Now, denials management is a very, very ripe space for generative AI to come in. If I have to map the entire denials management journey, or say what is the journey touch points for a denial manager across the value chain for denial management, it all starts at the front end itself. Like we said, we divide the RCM cycle into front, middle, and back end. For the denial manager, how it starts is that once the claim is denied and it comes back to the denials manager, there is a whole queue of these denials that come in. Now, first is you understand and analyze why the denial has happened. And in the traditional method, what the denial manager has to do is they have to map the CAR codes. That is nothing but the claim adjusted reason code, adjustment reason code, which actually specifies why the claim has been denied. So they have to understand the reason and they have to bucketize these claims in terms of their complexity, in terms of the amount that needs to be reimbursed, how high are they on the priority list for the appeals to be submitted. Now, all this traditionally happens through a very maker checker kind of a process wherein the denial manager will have to run through these denial reports. They will have to understand, analyze these reports, and then bucketize them accordingly, post which they will have to kind of go through the validation document, that is a clinical documentation at the back end. They might have to understand the eligibility validation. They might have to do the prior authorization validation, which involves a lot of back and forth from the provider to the payer, because they might have to do it through calls, through emails, through a lot of communication that is happening in the traditional way. Again, the denial manager has to do all of this manually, or maybe semi manually through semi automated systems that they might have. But again, when Gen AI comes in into this space, what it helps you do is it not only helps you summarize the entire denial information because of the key summarization capability that Gen AI holds, but it also helps you kind of bucketize these into those separate buckets that you see, or that the traditional denial manager would have to do it manually. Now, it helps or it assists the denial manager in reducing those kind of manual errors that usually could happen in a very complex kind of a scenario. Now, moving to like the middle office, wherein the denial manager, after it validates the prior auth and the eligibility, it will have to go through the clinical documentation and the medical coding that have been assigned onto the denial, say, documents. Now, here again, it gets very important because in the manual process, they would have to go ahead and do that manually and validate it across payer guidelines, across medical guidelines, across, the medical coding crosswalks that are available. But with generative AI coming in, it will be like an assist to them. So the medical codes there would be recommendations to the right codes, mapping to the right payer guidelines. The medical necessity will be taken care of through, say, a query, a chat assist, which is generative AI enabled. There could be contextual queries that could be positioned based on the denial, so understanding the denial better through the assist. Moving on to actually the appeal submission or generation of the appeals, which is again a very tedious process for a denial manager. Here, what happens is based on all of this analysis that the denial manager has done, they have to go ahead and create an appeal, which is resubmission of the claims that we spoke about. And this appeal should have all the supporting documents, because now the claim cannot go ahead again for a denial, and that's why the supporting documents have to be very valid in nature. And there is a lot of legalities that are involved out here. Now, in the manual process, again, traditional way, the denial manager will have to go through systems. There's a lot of structured, unstructured data also at the back end that might come in terms of handwritten notes, in terms of imaging, laboratory reports, which need to be going ahead with supporting documents. And the language that needs to go in these appeals are very legal in nature. Again, generative AI comes into picture out here for the entire content generation. So it runs through all these unstructured, structured reports at the back end. It helps you with the kind of attachments that need to be going in with the appeals, and it helps you kind of submit these appeals. Now, after submission of appeals comes the process of following up on these appeals. And that again, GenAI comes into picture. It exactly chronologically defines as to when the appeal went out, when the based on the payer guidelines, because there is a strict number of days that the appeals need to be submitted within. So all these follow-ups can definitely be done with GenAI, and eventually the analysis and reporting with the payment posting part of it, which is the back end of the denial management process, is again can be handled with generative AI coming in terms of getting you those demand on demand reporting. In the traditional dashboards, you would have those drill downs, but here what you can do is you can go ahead and personalize the reports the way you want. So Gen AI comes in not only getting you the kind of analysis, but also helps you throughout the process and eases out the process. It assists the human in the entire process. And that is where the impact of generative AI can come in the entire denials management kind of walkthrough.
It certainly has its very specific capabilities that it brings to the table to help with that entire process, which it sounds great. It sounds very helpful. Can you share some case studies or maybe some success stories where Gen AI has been successfully implemented in denial management and what quantifiable results were achieved as a result of that?
Of course, I can. So, looking at the industry, of course, there is a lot of work that we as an organization also do within the denials management place. In the industry, there are some key providers that have actually worked on. And as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of focus on the front end of the revenue cycle management, because what happens is denials comes at the back end or the last part of the RCM process. But if the front end is taken care of, or if the errors and the manual intervention is being assisted in the front end itself, then till the claim reaches the back end, there'll be a lot of clean claim submissions that happen. And that is what organizations like Mayo Clinic have done. So Mayo basically has taken in the automation route, and what they have done is they have gotten in bots in place. There was a lot of staff attrition that Mayo was facing in the entire RCM area. And again, we know that staff shortage is a bigger problem in the entire US healthcare. So there were around 30 FTEs that Mayo could eliminate from the system, getting in those bots. And around, in a matter of a couple of years, they have saved around 700K by getting these bots into picture. And what these bots are doing is it is helping them get you the right claim status, helping you get the prior authorization status in place. Now, both these are required in terms of understanding or mapping out the prior auth requests that go in. And prior auth is the main or the key factor which is required for the medical necessity validation, which needs to go ahead, in the prior authorization approval letters to the coming back from the payer. And these submissions are eased out. The status of it is on real time basis, due to which they are able to eliminate those FTEs as well as get in those kind of savings, or get in the improvement in the turnaround time for the entire claim submission and reducing the overall denials. Again, organizations like Providence Health have gone ahead and they have kind of brought in efficiencies in the entire denials management process by not only getting in the bots for the automated eligibility checks. So what they have done is around 56 of their hospitals and around 1,000 physician clinics is wherein they have tried to automate their entire eligibility verification process for the patients, and that has gotten them 18 million savings across the year. And that is a huge number, wherein they have tried to get in the entire automation within the eligibility verification. Again, the front end processes are taken care of, and that's the reason you will have clean claims at the end. So these are kind of bigger organizations that have invested in AI automation technology, and kind of reaped those benefits that they envisioned.
Those are indeed very powerful numbers, and with big companies too, and big organizations that are using it and hitting great outcomes like that. As we're continuing this conversation, it always will lead into security and ethics and all these considerations that are incredibly important when it comes to healthcare tech, especially with AI. I want to start with how critical is the quality and the availability of data for AI-driven denial management? And what steps should organizations take to establish the right data infrastructure in order to leverage AI effectively?
So we come to the key of implementation of AI, and that is data. Data is the key, and that is the base or the foundation based on which any kind of technology will be implemented, and you will be able to see the accuracy as well as validate the output if the data, which is a source, is clean. That is the reason any implementation of AI cannot happen if the quality of data is not up to the mark. And with a industry like healthcare, which has such diverse data, which has best in class systems, which has so many integration touch points across the ecosystem, data becomes primary important for the data to be not only clean, but to be normalized and standardized in nature. Because there are so many systems involved, the standardization of data becomes a big challenge. And that is why for every organization to implement any small, even a single proof of concept like of a project, the key element that we talk about is starting with the data quality. So not only the data quality, that is the base, of course, but also the governance of the data. Which are the who is primarily responsible for the data, what is the requirement of the data, what are the kind of assets that are involved as part of the data. The entire data piece of the infrastructure becomes primary importance. Again, because it is healthcare, there is a lot of sensitivity of information that is involved, protected health information that is involved. So the data security, data privacy is another aspect that needs to be taken care of when you are getting into any kind of AI implementation. Also, the entire integration of the data, because there are so many ecosystems that are involved. I mean, so many systems that are involved. The entire integration piece of data becomes very important. So all these aspects have to be taken care of when you are thinking about any AI implementation or getting into any kind of technology kind of implementation. Overall, the employee training around the data is also very important. How do they handle the data and how do they sensitize the entire project based on the data and the security around the data? Those are aspects that any organization will have to have in place. Robust security measures, they will have to have human oversight into all of this. And then because the data is going to train the model is going to be trained on the data, so the feedback to the model is also very important with the human oversight coming in between. So all these aspects need to be taken care of so that you have the right kind of valid output from the implemented GenAI solution.
When it comes to the privacy and security, as you mentioned, how could organizations mitigate these sorts of risks as they come about?
So one is, human in the loop is always important in these cases. There is no automated uh, processes that would be involved. I mean, complete automation or complete AI handling of the process is not what we envision, because healthcare involves a lot of complex decision making. There's a lot of clinical data that is involved, and you will not be able to totally delegate it to an AI model, or you will not be able to eliminate the human in the loop anytime in the future. Again, training in terms of what the human would do and what the AI would do is also very important. So in terms of segregation of the activities or segregation of the tasks is very important when you are implementing an AI. The human in the loop has to understand what the AI is capable of and how do you utilize the AI completely. Because the output also of the AI will have to be validated by the human. It is never going to be the AI will give a complete decision. The whatever is the output that needs to be validated. And again, the regulatory aspect also comes into the picture here, because there are a lot of regulatory aspects that the AI needs to be taken care of. And that is where the human comes in the loop, that he has to validate what kind of outcome, whether it is, adhered to the regulatory standards or not, whether there is an issue or error that is happening. And the continuous feedback loop or continuous improvement of the model will only happen if there is human in the loop. So the human oversight or the human in the loop is the most important aspect when you're looking at, implementation of AI.
I could see how that human in the loop uh, um, setup and that checks and balances, that sort of balance between AI and human, could really help when it comes to ethical considerations when implementing AI technologies. So, would some of those ethical considerations be when it comes to AI tech in denial management, and how can they ensure that their practices remain patient centered and equitable?
Sure. So any kind of AI when implemented, like I said, there is a lot of regulatory aspects that need to be adhered to. So one is, when you are implementing AI, there is a lot of trust and validation that needs to be established within the framework. And that will only happen again, coming back to the data. If the data is clean, then, the output will be valid. And with the human in the loop, the output has to be validated, or there is a feedback that needs to be giving back to the model itself. And that is where the model will get retrained. That is where the entire the output will be generated based on what your desired kind of outcome is. And again, the employee training becomes key importance here, because the data security, privacy, all this needs to be taken care of, because it is finally the patient or the human that is involved, and the outcome of the human has to be mapped to what the AI will throw. So that's the reason all these ethical and again, ethical standards need to be established. So every organization will have to abide by certain SOPs or standards that they established within the AI space, so that whoever is involved with the AI, so there has to be a culture of innovation and collaboration with the AI that needs to be established within the organization to abide by those guidelines. So it has to be set in place, and again, getting the human in the loop is of most importance.
This has been such a great conversation around denial management and the use of Gen AI in this space. And it's been great having your expertise and your passion around this topic. And so to close it out, looking ahead, what trends do you predict will shape the future of denial management? How can organizations prepare to adapt to those changes and then leverage these new technologies to their advantage?
So as we said, denials management is very ripe for automation, for technology implementation. And with payers already ahead in the curve, providers will have to really buckle up and take it to the next level, wherein they start investing into solutions and focusing on starting with smaller implementations, or having a phase-wise approach of implementation is the key here, wherein the front end needs to be taken care of to actually move or have clean claims right at the back end. And that process will only happen with four key aspects. One is definitely investing in data quality and integration of the data. Second is having this culture of innovation and collaboration. Thirdly, the implementation definitely has to be in a phase wise manner. And fourthly, the partner, getting the right AI partner for your implementation is the key, because AI is here, and it is here to stay.
Thank you. Once again, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure sitting down talking with you about this.
Thank you, Laurel. Same here.
The Shaping Healthcare podcast is brought to you by Citius Tech, a leader in healthcare consulting and IT services. To find out more about Citius Tech, visit citiustech.com. To listen to more interesting insights on healthcare technology and innovations, search and subscribe to the Shaping Healthcare podcast. Thank you for listening. If you want to share any feedback or would like to be featured in our podcast, do write to us at citiusvision@citiustech.com.